Alrighty, we're live. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Matt Foyle. I'm one of the head coaches here at Empire Cryptocurrency Trading. And I want to welcome you to our first ever podcast that we're going to run at our YouTube channel here at Empire. And I'm going to be bringing on experienced, accomplished traders and getting them to share their stories and their lessons and things they've learned along the way, with a really big focus on the psychology, the mindset that these people embody and how it got them to where they are today. So I've got a bunch of fantastic guests lined up, some students from our Empire community, and also some head coaches and other traders out and about in the trading world. And we're going to be bringing them on. We'll be doing it on a monthly basis to start off. And yeah, I'm going to be asking them a bunch of questions, getting them to share their journey. And hopefully you guys, the listener, can get some really good value on some topics that are seldomly covered to the extent that they probably should be in the trading space. Trading psychology is such a massive part of what makes up a complete trader, yet there's very few courses and educational resources out there that really hammer in that psychological component in the teachings. So I think it's a great thing that we're doing this here at Empire, and I hope you guys get a ton of value out of it. So without further ado, let's introduce our first guest. So Matthew Stella, aka Spicker, is going to be our first guest of the podcast. Matt is someone who I've known for 5 years now, I think. It's been a while. When I first crossed paths with Matt, he was running a small Facebook group called Empire Cryptocurrency Trading. Not sure if you've heard of it. Yeah, he was an accomplished trader at the time. He was a mentor and a leader. But what I've seen that man go to from there to today is to someone who's at the top of their game at every level, right? He's killing it on the trading front. He's produced so many winning trades for our community members at Empire this year. And he's also killing it on the mentoring front and the leadership front. He leads foot first, and he's completely genuine in his approach. And so many people get around him because of that. So Matt, just take yourself off mute and say hello to everyone.
Awesome. So thank you for the introduction, mate. Really much appreciated. And like I said, we've known each other for a while now, and mate, hat off to you. You've absolutely blown this space out of the water. Your knowledge is absolutely unbelievable. You're an advanced trading coach, and I couldn't be more happier to work alongside you, dude. So I am astounded how much you have achieved and how much you've helped the community to get to where they are today. So hat off to you. And also thank you for running this podcast, because I know this is another task that we've put on the plate. But I think it's really important, like you said, it's bringing apart the psychology of the space in crypto, being a trader, managing your lifestyle at the same time, the whole aspects that come behind the scenes of what we do, right? I think a lot of people see the real front end of who we are. And when I say that, it's all the trades we put out there, the talking about crypto, the fundamental news we put out there, but bringing to life who we actually are as people, how we got to this point, I think it's equally important. And it'll help the community obviously resonate with who we are. And obviously, we're very transparent at Empire. So I think it's a fantastic start, and I'm excited to get straight into it. So this is going to be an exciting time. And I mean, we're doing the 45 minutes to an hour. So team and everyone, stay alive. It's going to be fantastic, and you're going to get some really good insights.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you said it well, Matty, that we really want to humanize the trading journey. It's not just super geniuses or these magical people pie in the sky who are successful traders. It's real people like you and I who actually trade, and we're here, and we can shed a lot of light on that, I think, in these podcasts, just by having these conversations, and as well as just getting to know us and our journeys. It's also the lessons along the way and kind of the psychological attributes that you guys all embody in your trading, because that's a big factor of your success, and we're going to try and unpack it in this podcast. So welcome everyone, and listen in, because we've got a lot of things to cover. So let's just start off.
Let's get into it. I'm pumped.
I thought we'd just quickly, just broadly talk about the market landscape first, because when you think about traditional trading, it's changed so much over the years, and like our world is so financialized now that like it's almost like shoved in your face, all of this like media and news. And I think the Bitcoin ETF was such like a big highlight of that, of, you know, we just had this narrative jammed down our throat for so long. Like it was over a year of like, you know, there was the ETF's been approved, no, it hasn't. Oh, it's fake news. And
Yeah.
the whole time, Bitcoin was just appreciating. And those people who had, you know, that technical backing behind themselves, they had their psychology in check, they were turning the news off, right? They had their, you know, their technical targets outlined, they just traded with the trend, and, you know, they just ignored all that noise. But I know so many people who were just like, you know, whipsawed around by all of this kind of like noise in what we see. And yeah, so I think it's a crazy market that we trade in now. And, you know, now we're on the other side of this ETF. We see that, you know, Bitcoin is marked down 20% from its highs. But it's like, you know, those targets that it hit, they were outlined by virtually every coach in our community. And we took profits there. And that was that. It was business as usual for us. So it's a crazy market we trade in now. And I think it's challenging for the new trader.
Mate, you couldn't have said it better. I think one of the biggest things that I realized, especially over the last 6 months, is the hype that came with that ETF, right? It was, the excitement was something, honestly, I haven't seen that much in the crypto space just yet. Obviously, back in the day, we had these little announcements, Tesla obviously buying Bitcoin, that sort of stuff. That ETF, almost anything was possible, right? People predicting billions and billions of dollars, and Bitcoin's going to go bang, parabolic straight to 100K. And it's like, take a step back and look at what's happened. I mean, crypto loves to sell the news event, but equally, the ETF played right into our target, like you said, right? That 618 retracement on the weekly time frame of Fibonacci's. And sorry, guys, it's a bit technical, but around that 48.5K mark was basically hit to an absolute T. And then we saw that big sell-off. Equally, by the time the monthly candle closed, it pushed it all the way back up, and now we're sitting at roughly 43K. So it's so volatile. But what I've also noticed and what we're seeing is there is actually mass inflows and billions of dollars of the ETF money come in. And it's, what is it? What are we, 2 weeks right into this? Like this could be something absolutely massive. But equally, guys, we just play with the trends. We're trading in the aspect of reading the news, reading the technicals, and we were always going to see a big sell-off. It was, I mean, looking back, hindsight's a wonderful thing, but the prediction was there. And again, that Fibonacci retracement is always a key factor to take into consideration. But taking away all the technical aspects, it is such an exciting space. I think we're going to see some amazing runs on Bitcoin personally. I think equally we've got a lot of, not strong, but the economic use is quite volatile as well. I think that's a better way to put it. So it's constantly fluctuating. 1 minute interest rates are dropping, 1 minute they're not. Next minute they're printing, next they need a hold because of inflation is slightly coming down, and then it spikes again. So equally, the market is sort of trying to work out, hey, which way am I going to go? So it's quite interesting in that whole aspect. But overall, I love Bitcoin. Obviously, that's why I'm in this space. I'm bullish on Bitcoin. And as we know, there's only a finite amount of it, right? You can't keep printing it. So the more and more absorption of Bitcoin, the more purchasing from ETFs. And last week we had announcements of Hong Kong wanting to bring out ETFs as well. And it's another massive market. So I think we're in for an exciting 2024. Volatility is 100% going to be there. We know that. We just want to be on the right side of it. And I think we should be, we will, I hope. I mean, that's the plan. But I think it's exciting nevertheless, and we'll just take advantage of whichever way the market goes. So that's the idea.
Yeah, 100%. I think, you know, the whole ETF idea to a lot of people has been like, wow, there's like institutional backing of this cryptocurrency. Now it's legit. All this money's going to flow in, and Bitcoin's going to go to 1 million. But, you know, these inflows, they take time. This is something that's going to slowly trickle in this money. But what we have to view it as, in my opinion, is like a tailwind. And it's a tailwind behind a market that's going to persist for a very long time. And there's that argument. And then there's the whole other side of the coin of like, what was Bitcoin brought into existence to do?
Yeah.
And it's a hedge against all this bullcrap that they're doing at the Federal Reserve. They're printing money, they're eroding our purchasing power, they're, you know, manipulating interest rates to do whatever they want to the economy. And the regular person really gets screwed by all this. And Bitcoin is that hedge for me in against all of that. So we have, the fundamental case, we have the tailwind of the ETF. And yeah, that's for me, that's enough to say, like, for the next year, at least, for the next little while, we need to anticipate that this market is here to stay and it's going to keep doing what Bitcoin has been doing.
One of the points that you made just then, right, before we sort of jump into everything, but that key point is, what was Bitcoin made to do, right? And I think this is getting to that real crunch point where it's like, this is where Bitcoin is meant to stand up, right? It was developed specifically for these situations when printing money's gone off the charts, the debt's gone out the roof, I mean, blown the roof off. And now we're sort of stuck in this space where it's like, this is where Bitcoin is meant to thrive. And I'm excited to see what happens in 2024 and if it does do what it's meant to do, right? Big believer in it, big backer, definitely. And I think, like I said, can't say it more. It's an exciting time. We just got to wait and see and be on the right side of it.
100%. And just irrespective of just Bitcoin as a whole, like the market that it brings with it, the volatility is one thing that we've talked about already, but that is also opportunity when you understand how to trade the market, right? If you don't know how to trade, you don't know how to read charts, you don't know how to do any of that, then yeah, maybe just get into Bitcoin and wait. That's the option. But like all this volatility, while you may say it produces risk, it also produces opportunity for those who understand it and know how to trade it. And I know you, Matt, as someone who's been a beneficiary of knowing technical analysis for many years now, and it's taken you a long way on your journey. But just to kind of reel it all back and go right to the start, I want you to start sharing your early journey into trading. So how did you get into trading? Like, what sparked your initial interest in financial markets?
It's a really good question because obviously I've always spoken about this, but I always stem back to, why did I get into this space to begin with, right? And at the nuts and crannies of it, I wanted to learn how to make money on my own terms with my own uncapped potential. That was the honest opinion, the honest feedback as to why I wanted to do this. So for me, it goes back to that point of, where did my drive come from? Where did my motivation come from to get into this space to begin with, right? And for me, a lot of the community know, like, I didn't come from money. I started off basically off my own 2 feet, working 3 jobs when I was 18, right? Working since I was 15, and really just being in that position where it's like, I don't want to go back to where I was previously, where money was always tight and you always had to watch what you spent and what you did. I saw my friends going overseas and traveling and things like that. I never had that opportunity. So when it got to the time where I could actually earn my own money, I'm like, what am I going to do to make this a dream come true, essentially? Because I never want to go back to that feeling of not being able to buy something. So for me in particular, trading was never originally up there straight away, because personally, I'd never been surrounded by it, right? No one I knew traded. No one I knew invested, for instance. People owned, or didn't even own, they were trying to buy their first properties, right? So for me, after I'd, again, gone through 3 jobs, finished uni when I was, never even thought I was going to uni, and magically ended up there after some life experiences and things that went past. And I ended up going, you know what, I'm going to go to uni, learn business, understand marketing. That was my degree, business with marketing, and sort of just climb the corporate ranks in that sense. And eventually worked for one of the biggest oil companies in the world, and just learned how to do what I do. And that is connect with people, build relationships, network. And I was surrounded by people that were in these spaces of making money, of investing, of trading. And that just rubbed off on me, right? That got rubbed off from the moment I worked at my first job as a tele salesperson at Origin Energy, calling people about electricity, to where I was working for a major oil company. And then obviously now owning Empire, right? And for me, it's just brought me into that space of understanding there's more out there than your initial bubble, right? And I think it's a really big one, because where I was previously, that was never a focus. It was never an idea. So going back to your question, what sparked my interest, it was seeing what was achievable outside of my existing network and reaching out and planting myself as almost a seed within other networks and literally just absorbing their energy. You see the sun, how it grows plants. I was literally that seed, that seedling, taking the energy from everyone else, their learnings, their experiences, and going, hey, how did you do that? Asking the right questions, because without the right questions and without the right network, it's difficult, right? So to sum up everything, it was just being around the right people, seeing what was available out there and going, you know what, I want to be a part of that. I've got the drive, I've got the motivation. And I've always been that person that goes, you know what, if I see something and I want it, I'll move heaven and earth to make it happen. And that's exactly what I did to basically get to where I am right now. So
Yeah,
it's
awesome.
been an interesting journey, a challenging one, but mate, it's been one of the most rewarding journeys I could say I've ever done.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I guess to probably summarize, like you crave that independence initially of like, I want to be able to do what I want when I want with the money that I have. But maybe, you didn't see what was possible, and then you started to, plant yourself, as you say, in other communities around other people who were doing it. And suddenly it's like the light bulb switch, like you walk out of the little tight knit room and it's like, wow, there's this whole world out here that's all for me to take. So that's awesome. And I think there's probably a lot of people that could relate to that, myself as well. Like it sounds, not exactly, but similar to a lot of the things that drew me in initially to the financial landscape.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. So just getting like a bit more specific, do you have any like key experiences that in your early trading career kind of shaped the trajectory of how things went out? Like anything specific, you think?
It's a really good one. So I think initially when I first got into this space to begin with was like that 2016, 2017 era when Bitcoin was like 3 grand, right? That point in time, I was obviously working full time, sort of got my really good, half decent first time job, and I was starting to earn a little bit of extra money. And at that time, I'm like, oh, this crypto noise, I just see it everywhere. It's like, what is it? What's Bitcoin? What's it going to do? I mean, earlier to that, I had friends that were buying Bitcoin for whatever reasons and then selling them and doing X, Y, Z with it. No one knew exactly where it was going to take us, right? But I remember this moment. Bitcoin was sitting at $3,300, and I was like, shit, I've got 5 grand in savings. Do I buy Bitcoin or not? And I didn't buy it, right? I just set up an account on one of the Australian exchanges, and I just was moving money around. I had no idea. I was still learning. And then I remember putting money into an exchange which no longer really exists anymore, but Bittrex, real old school one. A lot of early day traders were using. And I bought some Verge, some XRP when I think it was 2 cents. And what else? Some Stella XLM, so XLM and some Power Ledger, just some random coins I had no idea about. That was honestly because at that time, I mean, the market, the sentiment was going up, and it was just like Bitcoin was running, everything was moving with it. You check your account one day, bang, you're up 10%, 20%, etc. But it was such early days, and you had no idea what we were doing. These major announcements were coming out that actually weren't that major, but were overly hyped. Um, so it was just an interesting time overall, but I'll never forget seeing Bitcoin at 3,300 when I first started and going, shit, that's a lot of money, right? $3,300 was a lot of money for me back then. And now you look at Bitcoin and it's 43,000 US, close to 70,000 Australian dollars. And it's a completely different moment. So I still remember to that day that pivotal moment when Bitcoin was $3,300, and I'm thinking, shit, that's a lot of money, but bloody hell, I want to make that not a lot of money, and I want to buy some as soon as possible and have the freedom to buy it as I need to, as I want to. So yeah, that was probably one of those moments in history for me personally that sort of cemented that want and that desire to get Bitcoin, right? And I chased it ever since. And obviously now I've got some Bitcoin and whatnot. But it was just that moment in time that I'll never forget. And it's such a simple moment, but it's so embedded in my brain because at that point I'm like, crypto can present anything. The opportunities are endless. The money's there. It's not going away. And if I want to be a part of this space, I want to get into it deep, learn it properly. And then obviously that then sparked more of my interest in financial markets, and learning more about it, how to trade it, how to use it, how to get into it, all that sort of stuff. So
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. I mean, I feel like a lot of accomplished traders in the crypto space would have a similar moment where, yeah, they realize like, oh my God, this is crypto. I mean, like I have a similar story where I like had a bunch of Doge that I just bought in 2016, didn't do anything with it, and then one day it was skyrocketing, and I just remember like some post on Facebook or something mentioning it, and I'm like, oh, I think I own some. Checked like my old CoinSpot account, and it was like gone up significantly, like magnitudes that I didn't think were possible in markets. And that was like this again, like a light bulb of like, oh my God, this is crypto. And obviously there's many different ways that those situations can play out, but it's interesting that you kind of cone in on those one or two moments where the opportunity light bulb switches on about this entire landscape. And rarely do people look back from that moment. Obviously, there's a tough journey to walk to keep going through and learning things. But most definitely, it's that trading bug when it first bites you that starts the journey, right? Um,
Oh, mate, what you said there, that trading bug, I tell you what, it sparked a hell of a lot of interest.
yeah,
Most definitely sparked a lot of interest. And then the COVID crash came. I remember when that happened, it was shares were the hit, crypto was crazy running. It was just a wild, wild west of opportunity. And that's when obviously when the Empire Group sort of kicked off as well around that period of time. And it was just people wanting to learn and get in the space, and obviously had a bit of knowledge, and sort of just made a group, Empire, right? And put a post up, who's interested in crypto, who's interested in trading, and a couple of people came in. I think we had 12 people initially, and then they invited their friends, and more friends invited their friends, and obviously kept growing the Empire Facebook group from there on. And it was just, again, those sparked little moments in history that caught everyone's attention and then brought everyone together. And it's amazing how many friends obviously we've made now around the world, just from a moment in time, right? It's like the butterfly effect.
crazy, isn't it? Like, yeah, I mean, you and I wouldn't be talking on this podcast right now if not for those bag of shit coins you bought in 2016. So thank you, Stella, for that. And it's probably good perspective, I think, for a lot of new people in the space to hear that story, because you talk about, you know, $3,000 Bitcoin and how expensive that seemed at the time. Like that's a lot of money, $3,000 for one coin. But as we, you know, stand here talking today, it's a $42,000 Bitcoin. These are cycles that repeat over and over, and the emotions that we feel at each point, we're prone to them, right? And I think there's probably a lot of people that can relate to what you were saying there with their situation now of like Bitcoin's at 42K. That is so expensive. But you know what? They would have said it at 30K. They would have said it at 25K. It's just a psychological battle that we are faced with, especially when we don't have the learning and the backing and the knowledge behind us. So I want to segue this onto your kind of educational period. Like you said, you kind of got into crypto, you didn't really know what you were doing, but you started learning anyway, and you surrounded yourself with the right people and you picked things up from them. But just to shed some light on that whole experience for everyone listening, can you share your early journey of the education of trading? Like, how did you educate yourself? Was there any specific resources or mentors that you found were really good?
It's a really good question, because equally you would know this, is to come into this space can be daunting, right? There's so many different avenues to consider. There's so many different resources out there. There's stuff saying, hey, this is the right way, and then other people are saying this is the right way, and then you're following every single news channel, every single Twitter post, every single YouTube video that comes out, and you're like, how do I get a grasp on all of this? What is the most important? What's going to make a difference to my education and actually help me be successful at this? Because there's a lot of noise. And equally, when you're doing any sort of research, there's just clutter, right? You run into barriers, you run into fake information, you run into people that are talking about one thing because of their own personal interest. So going back into why or how or what resources in particular, it's get connected, right? When I say that, it's connect with the right people. Now, how do you find the right people? It's trial and error. Like, in all honesty, it is trial and error, but go through and find people that are transparent. And this is where I specifically like Facebook, for instance, and that's why I'm so heavy on Facebook, is you don't know who's hiding behind a Discord, right? You don't know the intentions of a YouTube channel that's promoting coins and talking about specific tokens. Yeah, they can do a fundamental research, and that's absolutely fantastic. That's helpful. But if they're telling you, oh, it's going to be the next 100,000 X coin, it's like, well, how do you know this, right? There's so much stuff out there, so much noise that's going to steer you in the wrong direction. So for me, it's personal, like proper resources that I would consider, or ones that I personally use. Facebook channels, ones that are transparent, ones that are honest, ones that have a backing from a company in particular, or that interest, the share versus getting something in return. Steering away from ones that are going, hey, what do you think about my portfolio? And hey, is this the next 100x coin? It's like education is what's going to bring you up, not asking a group of randoms, hey, is my portfolio good enough? And then they will shield their bags on top of it and say, you need to buy this. And it's like, well, hey, they want you to buy that because they're hoping that enough people buy that to pump that coin up for their own personal interest. So learning about the space, equally important. Security, most definitely. Security is the number one factor because I've seen so many people come through Empire after the fact that they've been scammed, after the fact that they've purchased some safe moon coin, for instance, that Joe Blow told them about when I was at the top, and then it's gone completely down the toilet. So in that, a good community, a good network, books are fantastic because no one can manipulate the data, right? You buy a book, you listen to an audiobook. Me personally, mate, massive on audiobooks, you know that. Got my favorite ones that I go through. In the Empire community, obviously, Daily Stoic, it's everywhere. Everyone's reading it. It's not trading related, but it's psychology related, right? It's how to be a decent human being. And to do that, you need to be that and have that mindset to be a good trader as well, right? And I think one of the other big ones is be not so much giving, that's the wrong word, but do things with the right intention, right?
Yeah.
So from that resource standpoint, if you're going out there putting good things out there for the community, sharing your insights and just bringing people along your journey, they present opportunities, right? You don't know what the next person holds, or and when I say that, what next person has at their disposal, right? I've met people in this space that have brought me along with so many different opportunities. Some have been fantastic, some not so great, but I wouldn't have those opportunities or those conversations if I wasn't true to myself and sharing my resources as well. So to sum up everything, your network, books are fantastic, and find an educational course that's going to help bring your knowledge up to speed. Don't try and battle this by your own, on your own is probably the better term, sorry, because at the end of the day, you can't get a grip on every single thing, right? And you need a mentor. In any space, you need a mentor. If you're an apprentice who wants to do an electrician, you need someone who's going to teach you how to wire up a switchboard, right? You're not going to go out there and test and learn because you're going to end up in a very bad day. Equally, if you're in the financial space, you want someone to at least guide you through and say, hey, push this button because that's the right button to push, right? Don't go and invest $10,000 when you haven't even had the opportunity to double $200, right? Learning the ropes as you go is important, but having guidance on how to do that is so much, it's invaluable at the end of the day.
Yeah, definitely. I want to echo like everything you just said. It's so critical. One, I think surrounding yourself with the right people. My environment, as I learned to trade, was surrounded by people who all could trade better than me, all knew more about markets than me. I was an idiot. But you can testify to this, Matt. Every single day I was sharing my analysis, going back years ago, and it was crap. Like it was like I would cringe probably looking at those charts now. But the thing was, you can't grow without putting yourself out there and kind of getting that feedback from people around you. And the big thing is asking the right questions. I think you see it on these Facebook groups, like you say, people posting, is my portfolio good? Is this coin going to go to 100x next? And it's like, you can only ask questions that are at the the edge of your knowledge. So when you come to these groups and you see just these red flags that are like just people wanting the answer to everything in this one quick little moment just so they can make a gazillion dollars, massive alarm bells of, these people aren't legit. You don't want to learn from these people. Stay away. There's so many groups where I've seen like that. It's like, this is the blind leading the blind in here. So really big on having, I guess, the right network around you and obviously the right resources.
Yeah, I think, mate, as you're saying there, right? And the right network can be, hey, you've got 5 friends and you're all helping each other grow, right? And it might be from a personal standpoint, it might be from a financial standpoint. But equally, like with Facebook groups and any other sort of group, it's going in there and going, what value am I going to get from this? If I'm hunting down for the next 100x coin that I'm hoping is going to go there, and I'm happy to double $200 here, $200 here, $200 here. There's no difference between doing that and going to the casino, right?
Yeah.
Because in crypto in itself, and this was one thing I learned really early on, it's not an easy game, right? You will fail and you will win. But the difference between failing and winning is the people that get back up and keep trying, right? That consistent effort, that motivation. Now, trading is lonely if you're doing it by yourself. And if you're beat down and you lose a couple of times, and you're gonna need some help to get off the floor sometimes, to have the right people there to help you to do that makes a hell of a lot of difference versus you going, you know what, I'm gonna be here, do it by myself, focus. And the moment you get beat down, maybe that point in time where you go far out, I really wish I had someone here for support. And these other people feeling the same way I'm feeling. Because I remember when I first started trading and I lost a couple of trades, and you lose, everyone loses, right? But it was having some coaches to bounce off, or people in the community, like you said, to ask questions, right? And this is one of the big things I'm really happy about Empire is everyone feels comfortable to ask those questions, but equally we encourage it. And the fact is, if you're not asking questions, you're not learning. And I remember when I first started as well, when I didn't ask questions, I felt lost. But when I asked those questions and I had people there to help, it made it so much easier, right? I felt like, you know what, they've got my back. If I need it, they can help. And I didn't have that within my inner circle, as sort of we spoke about earlier. I didn't know people in the financial markets. Even my friends, for instance, they weren't interested in that space. So I had to go out there and find new people, find new friends. But to have that backing in the end and have someone that you can bounce off and validate your ideas and your trades and your, I guess, your education that you're learning, you want to put that into practice, to have someone go, yep, you've done it correctly, it's worth its weight in gold.
100%, 100%. And you're right, like learning to trade is a very lonely venture if you let it be that, surrounding yourself with people who aren't necessarily, have to be, more experienced traders or less experienced traders, just people who are in the landscape, people who have other, experiences, perspective, knowledge, that all culminates into one big pool. Eventually, when you spend enough time around each other, and it lifts everyone up. And I really like like you say, how in Empire, people feel so willing to share. And I think that's kind of boils down to what the mantra has been in Empire since day dot is, you give to receive. And I think that's, like, in one sentence really describes why people are so willing to share, because they know if they put themselves out there in Empire, they share their analysis, they're going to get more than that back. They're going to get, experienced traders commenting and saying, this is good, look at this, improve that. They're going to get, maybe people who are less experienced asking them questions, and then they'll have to explain themselves. And that's a whole nother thing in itself, trying to articulate your own analysis and talk about what you are seeing is something that is really beneficial to progressing as a trader, because it takes it all out of your head and you put it out in the open. And sometimes when you hear yourself speak, that is how the light bulb clicks. So
I learned the most teaching people.
Oh, definitely.
I can't say that more than I can't say that anymore. I learned the most teaching people, because you see what you're teaching, you see people applying it, you see it all come into life, you know it works. So then people, when they use it, you're like, yep, it's working again, right? And obviously we don't have people teaching people if it doesn't work, but it's you learn how to explain things and it helps to further things click in your head. You bring people along that journey to make it so then they're understanding how to use these tools, and then you can explain it better to the next person and the next person, and you learn how to read people, how to help people differently, different learning styles. I mean, taught so many different people with so many different abilities, and you realize that not everyone's the same. So you need to adapt. You need to put your resources into different areas, and you need to connect with people differently. And some people might need a little bit more hand holding, where other people are more autonomous and just want to go ahead and do it. And there's other ones that want to do it in a group environments. Giving all possibilities and all options makes a world of difference.
100%. I think you touched on a really important point of how you connect to people as a trading educator yourself. I'm kind of going a little bit off topic here, but I think one thing that you do really well is you address the whole person when you're trying to elevate them to become a better trader, right? You don't just say you need to use these EMAs, you need to use this strategy. No, you aim to make them a better human. And because of that, you address a lot of the psychological issues, I think, which underpin why people in the trading landscape aren't necessarily successful. And that's a massive thing that you do. So I think we'll kind of segue that point onto the psychology aspect, because I really want to cone in on that now. So I want to hear from you, just real blanket statement first. Like, how important do you think having the right mindset is to trading success?
It's a really good question, and it's something that I stand by 110%. Is having a positive mindset impacts your trading ability dramatically. If you're in a negative mindset, instantly you're on the back foot, right? You might not be seeing things correctly. You might have the wrong attitude. You might be going, I'm happy to gamble and put $500 on something, when realistically, if you're in a positive mindset, you wouldn't have been, right? So for me in particular, with my mindset, the ways in which I try and maintain that positive mindset is, I limit my intake of information, right? And I've had students do this in the past. Matt, I'm struggling to keep up with everything. And this is both from a overall news perspective of, hey, the 6 p.m. news comes on and tells you every negative story under the sun, and it absolutely destroys your mind in half an hour in the first bloody, say, 15 minutes. Even half an hour segment goes for half an hour segment, but first 15 minutes absolutely destroys you from a mental aspect. So I basically have stopped following and blocked every major news channel that pops up on my newsfeed, right? If I want to read the news, I go out there and look for the news, right? Not that the news comes to me and ruins my day by saying, hey, XYZ has been murdered or XYZ has been stolen from, or something like that. Because that negative impact, you might be having the most productive day possible, and bang, you scroll through your Facebook, or you're doing some research and pop-up comes on the side and says, hey, did you know XYZ has happened? And that instantly is going to throw you out of your mentality mode of, hey, I'm hardworking, I'm disciplined, I want to stay focused, I want to stay energized in the right mind, but this is just instantly derailed it. And you can't help, because that's your human emotion taking effect, right? So for me, that positive mindset aspect is so super important, that I limit the intake of information. And I also limit the intake of crypto information. When I want to find the sources, I go out there and grab the sources. They come to me. And I limit reputable sources. So I'm not going off and following XYZ on YouTubes and 100 different Facebook groups and Twitters, etc. I honestly, right at this point, my main source of information is Empire, right? And that's not a sell. It's because the people that are in there, I trust, right? I know that they're looking at the right information. I don't need to go and hunt down that information. That makes my life a lot easier. Obviously, SEDS, for instance, does 20 hours of research, sometimes in a couple of days, and condenses it all into an hour segment. I bounce that off him, right? But in the end, my negative mindset is, I control that. I do my best to control that. And I think that stems to the fact of being disciplined, right? Discipline is one of the most hard-hitting terms you can say to anyone. If I tell you right now you're not disciplined, instantly you get on the back foot and go, what do you mean I'm not disciplined? Right? That is probably one of the biggest eye-openers for people, because I've seen so many people come into this space and they go really, really well for 2 months. They don't get the results that they want. So you know what? I'm going to stop for the next couple of months and have a break. then they come back and start all over again. That's never going to work.
Yeah.
So you have a disciplined approach and go, you know what, this month I'm going to do X, Y, Z. Next month I'm going to do X, Y, Z. Third month I'm going to do X, Y, Z. And it might be, you know what, I'm going to get up X amount of time and go to the gym, might read a book, meditate, whatever your interests are, but stay focused, stick to a plan, stick to consistent action is so important. That's what maintains a strong positive mindset. And equally, like I like to say, and you would know this, and a bit advocate for it, is spending time away from the computer is equally as important as obviously being behind the computer. Weekends, spend them with family, spend them with friends, do things you enjoy, make the most of it. And Monday to Friday, you limit everything else and hard hit it and get into work, because those are your money making times.
100%. Yeah, I think you've highlighted a few really important points. One that kind of strikes out to me is controlling your environment. And that's a massive thing in trading as a whole. I think it's important that you have an environment that you do your trading work in. I think it's important that you have an environment that you can relax in. I think it's important that you limit, like you say, the negative influx of information that is bombarded towards you at any given time. So that control of your environment, I think, is a major aspect of what facilitates the right mindset. So I'm glad you mentioned that. And the other thing is the discipline factor, right? And I think a lot of people, if you said to them, as in just a regular person learning to trade, or someone who's struggling with trading, and you go, you need to have more discipline. Sounds like such a cop out, I think, to some people. Like, obviously, like discipline, like, yeah, I am disciplined, or get all defensive. And it's like, no, that's a hard truth. I don't care if you don't like it or you think it's a cop out. It's just true. You have to be disciplined. Like, it's just a reality that if you want to have the right mindset in trading, this is what you must do. And it's hard.
You can't achieve anything without discipline. It is as simple as that. It's like one of the people that I love to follow and listen to is Jocko Willing, right? He puts some of the most hard-hitting facts out there, and just his experiences bring everything to life. But it's so true. Discipline will impact everything you do. Whether it's you want to be good at fishing, whether you want to be a good artist, whether you want to be a great reader, or you want to be fit in the gym, whatever that is, it only happens with discipline, consistent action. You can't deviate from it. And I think one quote that really rings true with me is the fact of, or an easy way to say it is, when you work hard, when you need to work, you work really hard, right? You give it everything. When you want to play and have fun, you play hard, right? It's as simple as that. Equally, when you want to enjoy something, you focus on it. It's like when I eat lunch, for instance, I'm not then doing a million different things. I'm sitting there, I'm focused, I'm eating lunch, I'm going to enjoy it. It's a moment in time where you sit with yourself, you gather your thoughts, you re-energize, then you go off and you focus on work, right?
Yeah.
You split too many things up, then you're just deviating your time, deviating your focus, and you're not going to enjoy those moments. And you're not going to get the most reward out of your time as well. You would know my famous saying is, your time is your currency, allocate it to the best resource possible.
Yeah, I think that really summarizes trading in the zone. I think if you were going to kind of just condense it into a very, very short little couple of sentences, it's having that awareness of your environment and being in the zone at every single moment. Whether you're eating a sandwich, you're in the zone. Whether you're journaling down, you're in the zone. Whether you're charting, you're in the zone. Whether you're relaxing with your family, you're in the zone with them. And I think there are a lot of people who could probably relate in their trading journey to, they're out with their family, or they're out with their friends, they're out, on a night out or whatever, and they're thinking about the market. They're not present with everything around them. They're thinking about, oh, what's my trade doing? They're checking their phone on the side. And it's like, you're not focused on trading. You're not focused on hanging out with your friends. You're not focused at all. What are you doing?
You're in limbo. You're doing nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
We're going to make a bad decision and FOMO into the market, and then come home and go, shit, I didn't enjoy my night, and I didn't enjoy trading, and what was the point of any of it?
100%. So really important that we touched on those. So moving on, I want to hear about some challenging periods or period that you had when you were learning to trade, because it's inevitable for any person who's going through the journey to face some pretty challenging times where things aren't going their way and they just want to, throw the toys out of the cot. And it's tough, but let's shed some light on your journey. What's a period that you found really struggling? Tell us about it and how you got through it.
It's a really interesting question because I mean, for me overall, there's been numerous times where trading is challenging, right? And like I was saying earlier, trading is probably the most challenging thing I've ever done by far, right? And it's not the technical aspect that you can harness on, you can get a grip on that. It's the psychology aspect, like we're talking about. It's when you're beat down and say you've made a really bad trade because you FOMOed into the market when you knew you shouldn't have FOMOed into the market, right? That there in that moment goes, shit, I knew I shouldn't have done it, but I did it. Now I'm faced with the repercussions, right? And that's happened to me. It's happened to everyone. But as you adapt and you learn, you start to get to that point where, you know what, either if I'm going to make those decisions, I'm going to have to stand true to those decisions full well and knowing that the repercussions could go the other direction, and I need to be okay with that. Equally, it's not just from a FOMO aspect, it's from a greed aspect as well, right? If you're chasing gains and you're chasing funds to make more money when you know, hey, there's probably a reversal coming, or your take profit was there and you should be taking it, but you want more, you get to that point where it's like, if it goes the opposite way, you need to be okay with that. So, from a challenging aspect, one of the early times when I started trading, and this is when I first started learning, I put $1,000 into my bank account and I said to myself, all right, I'm going to use this $1,000. And I remember at the time having a chat with my wife about this. And for people who don't know, I've been with my partner now for 16 years, so it's been a little while. But I said to her, look, I'm going to take $1,000 out of our savings. Again, this was at a time where money wasn't the big factor, right? It wasn't like we had a shit ton of it and it was okay. But I said, I want to put $1,000 in there and I want to learn to trade financial markets. I want to make the most of this. And at that time, I got about 3 or 4 lessons in from memory and I started trading. And I thought I knew what I was doing. As I'm sure a lot of people have been in this space, you think you know a lot what's going on. You've got the market, right? You know what the market's going to do. So you put your money in and 3 days go past. I've lost $1,000. Oh shit! How am I going to explain this one? $1,000 ago, I took $1,000 out. Now I've lost $1,000, but to trade, I'm going to need money. How do I phrase that conversation? All right, and this is a big one that a lot of people need to will resonate with, and will face is having those conversations with the person that is most important to your partner, and bringing them along that journey and explaining, hey, this is a real challenging time for me. I thought I knew what I was doing. I've got it wrong, right? And that ownership piece is so important. And that's a big one for me is extreme ownership is if you've done wrong, you own it, right? I personally can't lie, right? I hate it. It's the most disgusting thing. And it probably came from my parents who were like, you lie, that's it, you're going to cop it, right? But equally, it's the moment you lie is the moment you're not true to yourself, right? I can't go to bed at night knowing that I've lied because it really infuriates me. So going to my partner, my wife at the time, saying, look, I've lost $1,000. I need $1,000 more. And her being the amazing woman she is, she's like, I trust you. You're learning. Go for it. And at that moment, I made a commitment that I'm going to go through this entire course properly, make sure I understand it, make sure I can apply it. And I'm going to start small. And that's one of the big things in this space is people coming in, dumping $10,000 into their account, going, I'm going to trade with this. And it's like, well, if you can't understand the elements of how to manage $1,000, how are you going to manage anything more than that? So for me, that was a real challenging moment because it tested who I am, because I go, you know what, I've done this wrong. I need to pick myself up again and give it another crack. But equally, I've lost a lot of money. And at that time, for me, that was a lot of money. And I can guarantee it's a lot of money for a lot of people that want to get into this. But then going away and going, you know what, I'm going to give it another crack. And there's that element of, you know what, you can pull yourself back up, stay disciplined, stay focused, have that drive and that motivation and go, you know what, I'm going to do my best now to either make more money than what I've lost, or if I was to lose another $1,000, what happens then? Do you give it another crack? Do you stop? That's what you really need to ask yourself in that moment, because if you decide that you're going to stop after that $1,000 and you lose again, then there's no point trying, right? You need to know that this journey is going to be challenging, and then I'm going to do everything I can to make it happen. And if I can't get $1,000, I'm going to work my ass off to get another $1,000 so I can make this happen.
Yeah.
Equally, we see so many people in this space that are happy to spend a shit ton of money, a bunch of shit coins, but not on their educational resources, right? And that isn't me saying, hey, come learn from us, because we've got a heap of free education, right? Go nuts, jump on our live calls. On a Sunday night, they're free, right? But it's the element of going, you know what, this is going to be challenging. So I need to have the mentality that I'm going to make this work no matter what, and equally find the funds that I need to make this a reality as well.
Yeah, that's it's a really touching story, I think, because your internal integrity was challenged in that moment, and it shouldn't be understated how hard it is to kind of face those tough conversations with people in your life. And yeah, like it's something that I think should resonate with a lot of people in the trading space, of being that open and honest with your partner, whoever it is, because it is your partner, right? You're a partnership, and you're doing this together. And things like money, things like trading, you can't, even though you're doing it, you're both doing it, and you both have to be informed, and you both have to communicate these things. So easily you could have in that moment just try to stuff it under the rug, and just tried to get another 1,000 in a little sneaky way, and just
ended well in the long term, tell you that.
100%, under the rug, and eventually you get rats, and they pick the rug up, and everything's
Yep.
for sure. So yeah, I think that's a really pivotal moment for you in like your early trading, and it highlights an issue that virtually everyone has in their early trading, is like undercapitalization. And it's like, people think, if I just chuck 10 grand in a trading account, if I don't know anything, I can make this into 20K or 30K. They just get these ideas in their mind, but it's not backed by any real understanding about what they're doing. They just have this kind of like idea in their mind, and when it doesn't work out, like, you have to be true with yourself. And I think you were in that moment of, I didn't know what I was doing. I need to educate myself before I spend this next $1,000. And you went and did that, and that speaks volumes now that we're here today, that you made those decisions in those moments, because clearly it was a very tough time for you, and you made the right choices, the hard choices, and it's gotten you to where you are today. So I think that's awesome that you shared that with us.
Thanks.
Moving on to something you touched on just briefly earlier, was the greed aspect, the emotional discipline, because that's big in trading, right?
Yeah.
I know that even though we've been trading for a very long time now, when you're in a trade and you see that big green bar, something inside of you feels something. That's real. We cannot help it. But do we let it control our actions? That's the discipline aspect that we have to attach to that. So it's inevitable you're going to feel emotions, greed and fear in the market, but how do you manage them in your trading approach?
It's a really, really great question, because this is the moment where, like, you would know me as a trader, I love to trade and sleep, is the way I like to put it, right? Is set my trades, go to sleep, let them do whatever I do, and you wake up sometimes and you see this massive green profit, and you're like, all right, this has been fantastic. I slept and I made a couple of grand. Equally, it can go the opposite way, right? Your stop loss is hit overnight and you've lost $500 while you slept. But that's trading, right? So I guess from that emotional element, it's being happy, being consistent. Again, it's setting those targets. Go, you know what? If my price hits X, Y, Z, I'm okay with that. Anything more than that is a bonus, but you know what? I'm happy to take profit at this potential point. So for me, it's that element of greed is no longer there. Like, personally, I've got to the point in my life where not only am I content and obviously financials are in a good position, so that I don't need to go, you know what, I want more, I need more. It's I've got enough to be comfortable, and I can be comfortable and help people around me, because at the end of the day, when I started trading, it was not only for myself, it was to make sure that people around me that are closest to me are secure and I can help them if needed, right? So the greed element is no longer there, and I'm okay to just make money, right? And I think that's a big thing that people need to come to terms with is if you have set a target and a plan, stick to that plan, because anything more than that is a bonus. But equally, if you make a plan and don't stick to it, and then it goes and does the opposite thing, and you haven't taken profit, it's going to hurt your psychology even more than going, you know what, I missed out on some extra, right? Because I can guarantee probably 8 times out of 10, that extra is not going to happen, and it's going to go the opposite direction. And you should have taken profit and been happy with where you're at, but you let greed take over. And that emotion is very, very strong in humans. Naturally, people always want more, want to aspire for more. And it's really hard to get to that point at which you're content, right? But I can tell you now, being content is a fantastic position. To be happy is amazing. You don't always need to want more, but always just work towards being a better person, being a better you, better version of yourself. Grow that 1% per day, right? That doesn't mean your account balance, it means you as a person, because then that will naturally come with it. So again, don't chase those green bars. That's rule number 1 for me, right? Stick to the plan. You stick to that plan and it works out, bang, your positive mindset is there. You don't stick to the plan and it goes the opposite way, then bang, instantly you're negative. That's going to then rub off onto your next one, right? And for the non-experienced trader, having a couple of losses or not following your plan, it's going to impact you. You're going to need someone to pull you up off the ground, like we were talking about earlier, and say, you know what, pat you on the back, you've got this, get up, give it another crack, right? Because again, as we're talking, trading can be lonely. And if you're in that moment of greed and it stuffs up, you're going to need someone to help you out and go, you know what, hey, you were greedy. And sometimes that wake-up call is necessary to say, hey, you had a plan, why didn't you stick to it? And that ownership piece then needs to come out of that individual and say, you know what, I was greedy. I didn't stick to a plan. And I've done that with students. I said, you had a plan, why didn't you focus on it? Why didn't you stick to it? Oh, I thought it was going to go more. Why did you need more? Because I didn't want to miss out. Okay, so that's the FOMO element and it's the greed element.
Yeah.
But now you've got nothing. You've got less than what you should have had. And you could have
Yeah.
closed out your trade while you were asleep, and you would have been happy when you woke up, and you could have went about your day in a real strong positive mindset.
Yeah, that's well said. I think the amount of money lost from traders trying to chase that little bit of extra froth on their trade would be insurmountable when you think about it. And like I think the 2 points that I've kind of drawn from what you just said is the security aspect. So you're secure in yourself as a person. You are less swayed by your emotions because your core fundamental self is rock solid, right? So when you feel these impulsive feelings, you know that they're just feelings, they'll be gone in the wind, and you have your plan, you stick to it. So I think that's a big component of, yeah, managing that fear and greed, that security in yourself, and then being able to follow the plan that you set out for yourself, which something we're going to probably touch on a little bit more throughout this interview is the fact that you have, like, do you have a plan, and what is that plan, and also how do you stick to that plan? So we'll kind of segue into that in a little bit, but just while we're on the topics of like fear and greed and emotions, do you have any specific techniques that you use to kind of keep yourself level-headed and maintain that emotional discipline in not just your trading, but your day-to-day life?
It's a really good one, because I feel like previously I was someone that would get quite frustrated quite fast, right? I was always someone that was, some people didn't think I was approachable. I was probably a little bit harder to connect with and things like that. And it's something that I've learned over my time as sort of actually being in the crypto space and meeting a lot of people and sort of obviously doing a lot of interviews, doing a lot of presentations, that sort of stuff. You have to have that connection with people, right? You need to branch out. I've always been good at building relationships, but it's always get that first step in the door to make that relationship was always a challenge. So for me in particular, I try and maintain my positive mindset, again, by obviously limiting the intake of news and things like that, but also just keeping true to myself, right? That's a big one. So from that negative aspect and that greed, etc., how do I maintain that positivity? It's staying true to who I am, setting my plan, staying disciplined, right? It's honestly not rocket science. A lot of people think that to be successful, you need to journal, you need to do X, Y, Z, you need to be in the gym at 4 a.m. every morning, right? It's not the case. What I have to say to people is you need to find your rhythm, right? What works best for you? Adapt tools from different areas of your research and your learnings and put them into your own little bucket, right?
Mm.
For me in particular, I personally hate reading, right? I mean, when I say I hate it, I get bored reading, like physically reading. So I'll listen to a lot of audiobooks. However, if I'm interested in something, I'll research the hell out of it. But I want to choose what I'm interested in, not people tell me what I have to learn and what I have to be interested in, right? So crypto has been so great for me because I chose to do it. I chose to learn about it. I then chose to educate others and help others, right? And I really enjoy that. I love doing this sort of stuff. And as a comedian, I'm happy to jump on a Zoom with anyone. It means it's great for me. I love it. When we went over to London, we met up with like 20 of us. And I had never met them before. But for me, that maintains a positive mindset for me because I'm connecting with people, right? So again, for me, it's find out what works for you, adapt different resources and tools, create your own little pool, your own little bucket, then create that as your plan of attack to maintain your positivity. For me, a big one is, and I put in sort of my structure is exercise, number one. If you're not healthy, and this is my personal opinion, if you can't maintain a healthy body, it's going to be difficult to maintain a healthy mindset, right?
Yeah.
And that's from a chemical balance of your body, but also the fact of going, you know what, I want to feel good, right? I don't want to feel like I'm struggling, right?
Yeah.
I see people around me that are struggling and need that, right? And I try and help as much as I can, but at the same time, it comes down to the individual. Maintain that, be helpful to yourself, right? So for me, it's either going for a walk with my dog or going to the gym, right? Keeping active on the weekends, doing things like hiking in the bush, fishing out on the boat, whatever it is, doing activities to maintain your well-being, right? The other one is listening to audiobooks. Flat out. All week I listen to audiobooks, right? And motivational speeches. For me, motivational speeches just get me up and going, right? They're not for everyone's cup of tea because people are like, oh, it's just people spilling a whole bunch of crap. But for me, they get me buzzing, right?
Yeah.
Wake up in the morning, bang, whack up on a motivational speech. That's it. I'm in the zone, right? So, and then sticking to a plan. Hey, I've got a checklist to get done for the day. I write that checklist down. I make sure it gets done before I go to bed.
Yeah.
And some people know that I don't need all that much sleep to maintain productivity, but I know that between say 7 and 6 hours, I'm on like that, right? Anything more than that, the bonus for me, and it just recharges my battery for the rest of the week. But I can maintain on 4 hours, 5 hours. I might not be as productive, but I can still get stuff done.
Yeah.
But I know to be my optimum best, I need to be between that 6 to 7 hour mark. So I wake up fresh and I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
And again, that's just me learning along the way and going, all right, exercise is important to me. Recreational activities outside of the computer is really important. Friends, socializing is important. So I do those on the weekend. I exercise during the week. And at the same time, in amongst that, I know that spending quality time, say with my partner and my family, is equally important. So it's either having dinner with parents or, hey, making sure that me and my wife, we make sure we have dinner together every single night, right? And we take an hour and 2 hours out of our day to spend time with one another because that's what's going to maintain my positive mindset. Like we were talking about earlier, when we work really, really hard. But we want to enjoy those moments. We make sure we focus on those moments because that's what's going to boost you up to then keep going.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting. I think a lot of what you said probably could be summarized in building your life from like the ground up, right? You have your foundational layers, your health, your mindset, and everything kind of translates above that, you know, your success in business, your success in trading, the way you deal with people, your emotions in day to day, like we've just talked about, they fluctuate depending on that foundation underneath you. And you can probably, like, I view it as like, you know, it is an actual, like, a building or a structure that you build when you work on those aspects of yourself. And if you try and build your trading success on a bunch of like wet clay, a little gust of wind's going to come over and you're going to be completely swayed by it. But if you're using rock solid, you know, concrete pillars to, you know, build the foundation of who you are as a person, as a trader, gust of wind comes and it's just, you know, you didn't even notice, right? Because you're so secure in yourself that you don't let these external factors influence you. You choose what you want to be influenced by, and that's that.
100%.
Let's move on because we're probably gonna run over here, but let's get into the lessons learned. Okay, so
Yep.
we'll start on a bit of a high, and then we'll touch on some lows. But first, let's talk about a memorable trading success and the key factors that can influence it.
All right, so I've got two that I did note down, right? One's more recent. One was one that I was really, really happy with because not only was it personally successful for me, it was also successful for a lot of members in the community. And that was you probably know which one I'm going to talk about, but 1000x, 1000% trade on DOT. So recently had a great trade on DOT. It was on 15 times leverage. So for people that are tuning in and aren't not sure, but basically when the market moves 1%, we're able to make 15% on the trade. And so that ended up going up to 1000%. I think it was an 85% spot trade or something like that. I can't remember off the top of my head. But it played out to an absolute T. The TA was absolutely perfect on it. Everything stayed true. I held that trade for 28 days, I think it was, or 30 days from memory. And it was just one of those moments where I was sharing the experience with the community and going, hey, this is what I've done. This is the next thing. This is the next thing. This is why I'm doing it. And just sort of bringing that to light as to how you can sort of maintain a position for so long and not be caught up in all the other factors that are going on, staying true to your analysis and going, you know what, I see this potential target. This is where it's at. And I'm staying true to that no matter what. So that turned out really like fantastic. Obviously, I think we ended up making about $5,000 from that trade alone. And it was nothing. All I had to do was sleep for 28 days, right? And in amongst that, I was making other trades and other decisions and doing other things. But that was a really awesome moment because I didn't have to do all that much, right? I didn't even have a massive allocation of money on that, right? It was quite small compared to what I typically trade from a position, but because the growth in percentage terms was so substantial, like I said, it equated to about $5,000 or a little bit over from memory, 5.5, I think. But again, bringing the community along that journey and how I did it was fantastic because people took a lot away from that. So it was a really memorable moment. But
Just
another,
I mean, just for a second, and just shed some my perspective on that, because obviously, yeah, I was there for that whole dot trade, and one thing that I think is just awesome about that, and I think it's why you really enjoy, I guess, that trade in particular, is the fact that you took the community on the ride for you. There are a lot of trading educators out there who will you know, show the P&L and the chart after the fact, and it's all just to kind of get people through the door, and that is so easy, right? But to put yourself out there before the fact and say, this is what my plan is, and you put your money where your mouth is, and you have a community behind you that, you know, they trust you because of, you know, what you've been able to do and how you've helped them, and they will come along for the ride too. And I know there were people, you know, relatively new traders who are messaging in our communities like almost every day, like, oh, dot's gone down. Like, Matt, do I sell? Do I sell? And you were just this wave of like calmness of like, you know, Sensei Stella coming through and just saying, guys, calm down, take a deep breath. It's okay. If we hit these levels, then we'll get out. But until then, just let it happen, ride the trend. And yeah, I mean, I've traded dot up along that trend as well, and I know there were many people in the community who did as well.
It
So
was just a fun moment, right? That's what really got it for me. Like I enjoy it. And it wasn't to go, hey, people take this trade, because obviously, as you know, we don't tell anyone to buy and sell,
yeah,
but just sharing the fact of this is what I'm doing, this is why I'm doing it. Right.
yeah,
And just maintaining composure in amongst that, like you said, like I said earlier, right? You set a plan, you stay disciplined, you let it go, you focus on it. And I think that's a big piece for everyone in trading generally is don't try and take everyone's opinion, focus on your plan, listen to what people have to say, then reconsider and make sure it's sticking true to you. But again, you're the steer of the ship. You're the one, you're the captain.
yeah, 100%.
Um,
You're going to say your second trading.
so my second one is equally also my biggest regret. And that's why I say this. So this is an NFT trade in particular, right? So this was a little while ago, 2021, but you would probably be privy to this, but Crypto Bulls Society had been released, and I purchased them at the whitelist opportunity. I was whitelisted, got in. I think they cost me $1,200 from memory, and that included $300 worth of gas fees at the time. From ETH fees were absolutely through the roof. This was a time when ETH was $4,300 USD. All right. So ETH was pumping, right? The market was pumping, NFTs were hot. And I jumped on this NFT that was from this famous artist and purchased these two crypto bulls, like I said, for about, I think it was, what did I say, 600, no, sorry, $1,200, something like whatever it was, right? Around that $1,000 mark from memory. But these things pumped. And in 48 hours, I had sold them for 12,000 US. Right.
Yeah.
So in the grand scheme of things, that's about, at the time was about 15K Australian in 48 hours. I was rapt over the moon. I'm like, thank you very much. I'm done. I'm happy to take my profit, right? This is where the greed element kicks in. Okay.
Mm.
However, I did stay true to myself. So I'll put that out there and I didn't rebuy. But in another 48 hours, these things pumped to close to, what was it? 3 ETH each. Or 3.5 ETH, I think mine were valued at the time. So you do the sums on 4,300, they were close to 15,000 US dollars each one.
Wow. Yeah. I don't care who you are, that you would feel that, even if you,
Yeah, I felt that in the soul, that one. That was, hey, I could have pocketed about 45, 50K in about 4 days, but I didn't. I made about 12 grand US in the end. Still happy, but equally so frustrated because I knew in my soul that these were going to go more, but I had a plan and I stuck to the plan.
yeah,
However, guess how much these are worth now?
let's hear it.
$132 each. So,
So, yeah,
regretful moment, but also a proud moment to stick to the plan.
100%. You stuck to your plan, and I think what you said just before, you felt it in your soul, it was going to go up. I mean, if we all traded according to our souls, we probably would. Well, I kind of call it trading your intuition, and it's like, no, just trade what you see. Don't trade like what you are thinking about might happen in your head. It's not a tangible, reliable strategy. So it's not something you can do over the long term.
Yeah. So equally the most amazing moment or one of the greatest moments, but also biggest regret, but also the biggest one of going, thank God I stick to my guns.
100%. There's definitely a few lessons to take away from both of those trades. How about on the biggest loss side, a challenging loss and the lessons you learned from it?
Mate, we've had couple losses, even a couple of NFTs, right? I think one of the biggest learnings is don't get sucked into the hype, right? This is crypto. One thing that's hot right now, you can give it 48 hours to a week and it will be the deadest thing that you've ever seen come alive, right? I know launch pads, for instance, one, we were massive in launch pads. They've been released, they'll pump in, we held them, you got other tokens for holding them. And those launch pads now are worth peanuts.
Yeah.
Right? I think I had a whole bunch of Wagyu swap that was worth a couple of grand. Looked at it the other day, it was worth 16 bucks. Right? Things like that where you're just riding that hype and that momentum, and you need to take into consideration that this is crypto. And I think one of the biggest learnings for me and people that come to this space, it's like, this next meme coin is the best one because of X, Y, Z. And you've got Pepe that literally called itself a scam coin, and people still riding this hype saying it's going to come back to life and things like that. Yeah, bull market might pump those or push them up, but again, there's so much risk in that element as well. So for me, say big losses are probably launch pads, hype coins, that sort of stuff. Man, I couldn't even put a number on it. Who knows? Probably lost a couple, 10,000, who knows? But at the same time, made a lot of money when doing other things. And this comes down to the risk management aspect. It's only put what you're willing to lose in what we call those shit coins, right? Because so yeah, so as we were sort of saying, sorry guys, before they just glitched out for a quick second, but as I was saying, I've made some great money on some of those high risk trades, but equally at the same time, it's all about risk management at the end of the day. Only allocate what you're willing to lose on what we call those shit coins, and make sure that your risk management is there, and be okay if they do go the wrong way. But equally, again, stick to a plan. If it goes to X, Y, Z, you're happy to take profit and make money.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And it's probably a good segue over to risk management, because it's something I want to talk about. Is like, it's so massive in your trading and it's talked about a lot, but I want to hear it from the man himself. How crucial is risk management in trading, and what strategies do you employ to mitigate your risk when you trade?
I'm going to keep this one really, really simple, and I'll touch on a bit more from a technical aspect, but don't spend what you can't afford to lose. It's
Yeah,
as simple as that. And I mean that from a life perspective, but also from a trading perspective, because if you're trading money that you don't want to lose, or you don't want to lose too much of your account balance, you have too much allocated to that position. And if you lose that money, it's going to hurt you from a psychology standpoint. You need to be mentally okay with whatever money you put on that trade, that you're happy to lose it. And this was something I had to learn really early on, because I was putting, say, originally $100 per trade and say on a $1,000 account balance. That's not wise, right? That's 10% of your overall account. So I had to take a step back and go, you know what? I'm going to put $5 per trade and slowly build that up as my account balance built up, right? So I went from $5 to $20 to $50 to $100 to a couple of $100, $500 and $1,000 and so forth, right? But that's as simple as it can be, is don't spend money that you can't afford to lose, right? So what I like to say, and what you would know, is a lot of times I allocate 1 to 3% of my account balance per trade. I try and stick personally with 1% more than anything, 3% if I'm a little bit more confident and happy to take that risk, but 1% is my go-to. And from a risk position standpoint, for the other guys that are traders specifically and know how to sort of set your positions, is I don't trade anything under a 2 to 1, and my preferred risk to a reward ratio in a trade is 3 to 1. Because
yeah,
again, I go for those higher swings where I can go to bed, wake up, let the trade play out over a couple of days. And from a risk standpoint, to help mitigate your risk, is less is more in this space personally. You don't need to trade 30 times a week. If there's no good setup, there's no good setups. If there's good setups, take advantage of it. But I'll personally go for like 2 to 3 trades, maybe 3 to 4 trades a week. That's only if they sit my position, because again, you can allocate more money when you've got a larger account balance, and your 1% is going to make you still $1,000 on a trade, right? And you'd be happy with that. So from a risk standpoint, 1%, don't trade what you can't afford to lose, and equally focus on percentages versus dollar figures in the early days.
100%. And the other thing is, I think, like what you said, the risk to reward and the trades that you're taking. I know we've got tables on the Empire resources, explaining, if these are the trades you're taking, this is how often you need to be winning your trades. And it's something you need to think about when you're planning your trade strategy out, of like what is the probability of my trades playing out if I trade this same trade 100 times, and if it's 60%, 70%, and if I trade a 2 to 1 risk to reward every time, am profitable? You need to think about those things, because over the long term, that's how you slowly accumulate your account and how you grow as a trader. So I think, yeah, that's really good overall summary of like how crucial risk management is. And like you say, it's not rocket science, and you spell it out really clearly. There are just a few things you need to do to mitigate the risk.
Yeah.
But as you know, and as I know, there are so many people who they may even know those things. You could ask them, like how would you mitigate risk in the market? And they say, oh, well, I don't trade with, what I can't lose, and I only trade 2-to-1s, and they just go off and do whatever, right? They don't follow their risk management rules. So for those people,
I think that's, sorry, I just want to jump in for a second. I think that stems into that FOMO element. And this is something where sticking to a plan is so critical. And also the fact of, if you stick to a plan for say 5 trades, and then all of a sudden you want to stick $500 a trade after putting on $100 for the last 5 times, and say you've won those last 5, that potential one trade at $500 can destroy all that progress in one hit if it goes the opposite way.
Yeah, and we're so much more prone to making that mistake after a run of wins or after a run of losses. Like when your emotions are peak, that's like the most vulnerable moment to make that mistake. And that all comes back to that awareness that we need to have about ourselves, and also the foundation that we build, so we don't let these emotions control us in these moments and make us go against our rules when we set them out clearly for ourselves. So yeah, I think that's great. And you pretty much covered it, but like, do you have any other advice just for sticking to the rules, or do you feel like you've covered it?
I think having a great trade plan that suits your style of trading is important. I know I've learned early on that scalping isn't for me, so I don't scalp trade, right? Very, very rare. It's not my most successful style of trading either, right? So I steer away from it. Stick to what you're good at, identify what you're good at, put that into a plan. And if that plan isn't broken, don't try and fix it. You don't need to know what my strategy is, what your strategy is, and what 10 other people's strategies are that are successful. If your strategy works for you, hone in on it, keep adapting, keep making it better and better. But equally, you don't need to know everything. You just need to know what works for you, have a plan, and stick to that plan. That would probably be one of my biggest pieces of advice, is because, again, if you're trying to grab information from everyone and trying to adapt everyone's strategy, and you've got a bit from here and a bit from here and a bit from here, when you put it all together, it's not going to work, right?
Yeah.
You can't put square jigsaw pieces into triangles. It doesn't connect.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And I think the aspect of having that plan, you say that, and I think there's probably a lot of people listening, and like they know deep down that they haven't sat down and written out a document and talked about what their strategy is to themselves, and they'd rather try something, pick it up, and I'll trade these 3 EMAs or this price pattern, and when they try it for 6 weeks and it doesn't go too well, and it's like, what's the next strategy that I can try?
I think that's a big one, right? Is trying so many different strategies.
Yeah, and I think you have to be open to everything that's out there to you, but like you say, you got to filter it to a degree, and you also got to know that a technical strategy is not something that you just kind of make up out of nothing. It's research, technical analysis that has been built on for hundreds of years now, and it's come to us and it's ready made. It's like the cake is out of the oven. You don't need to like go and find another recipe book and see how to make a cake. It's right there for you. So yeah, I think that's a big factor of like just sticking it out and committing to it. Like, myself, Matt, I trade harmonics, but I was researching them like years and years ago, and my like initial bout with them was pretty rough. Like it was tough in the early days because it was really technical, and it was like, when you're learning, it's not going to play out as often as you would like it to. But I knew like what the strategy was, and I knew it was something that definitely works. And therefore it's my ability to adhere to the strategy that I need to work on, and my understanding of what the strategy is that I need to work on, not throw the strategy in the bin and go find a new one.
Yeah, 100%. I think that sums it up perfectly, what you just said there. It's hone in your strategy, work out what you want to do, hey, you want to trade, what's going to suit your lifestyle. I think lifestyle is a really important one as well, because as you would know, I like to get out and about. And as I was sort of explaining, on the weekends, I want to be out on a boat, having fun, that sort of stuff. I want to set my trades and just let them go. So if you
Yeah,
want to scalp, you're going to be sitting there in front of the computer for a while trying to do that and making your money. Equally, you can set your trades and sort of let the positions run. You might not have as many opportunities, but it's quality over quantity, and I'm a big believer in that one. So
yeah,
it's been
100%.
it's been a
The
fun journey.
over trading is another one that you see quite often. Like you said before, you don't need to be taking 30 trades a week. Generally, there's only a couple of really good opportunities at any given time in the market. Like, yes, there's always opportunity, but generally speaking, the 99% of the charts and stuff and you're going to look at won't have an opportunity. It's the few percent that do. It's why like you obviously got to do your analysis daily, but surround yourself with a community of people who are all looking for the right things, and that gets brought to you, and suddenly all the best opportunities are lined up, and you can appraise them one by one and go, okay, there's actually only two good trades right now.
Yeah.
Um, all right, let's move on because we're definitely going over. But just want to get on the money psychology side of things, which is a big factor, I think, and seldomly thought about, I think, by a lot of traders. So I just want to get your general thoughts on like how you've come to view money over the years, because it's what we aim to accumulate as traders, aim to grow account sizes, but it's something that I think a lot of people don't think about fully of like what actually is money? What is this thing I'm trying to get? Like, why do I want it? And what really is it at the fundamental level? So how have you come to view money in your time?
It's a really, really good one, because I think at a younger age, I saw money as sort of a root of evil, essentially, where it created problems, right? It created problems because financial hardship is hard, right? And it destroys family, it causes arguments, it causes tension, and it's just not a healthy environment that anyone should ever be placed in, right? It is detrimental to your mental health, to your physical health, to the people around you. But as I got older, I realized that money, not that it creates happiness, it creates freedom. I think that's a big learning curve that I had to get over. And obviously, I wanted to earn more money because I didn't want to experience financial hardship. But the fact of the matter is, once I was able to acquire money, use that money to enjoy life and help people around me, it creates that element of freedom. If I want to travel, I can travel. If I want to pay for something, or if I want to take people out for dinner, like family members and things like that, if I want to buy my wife something, I can do it, right? If I'm done, this was not too long ago, a really perfect example. It was only something small. Was I took my nonna out to the shops, my grandmother to the shops, and she just wanted some groceries, and it was getting some fruit and vegetables. And as she went to whip her card out, I just tapped my phone and paid. And being an Italian sort of heritage, she was really like, "No, you can't do that. I'm meant to pay for you." And it's like, no, mate, you've paid for me for a long time. I can pay for you at least a couple of times. And I always bring her something now. And she still to this day goes, "You don't bring me anything." And it's like, no, I bring you something because I can and because I want to. And it's a sign of respect for everything you've done for us and the family. So for that sort of element, again, money creates freedom. It allows you to do things that you wouldn't be able to do otherwise. And I think that's really important because it creates memories as well. Positive memories. It can also create bad memories. Don't get me wrong. Having too much money and not understanding the value of money can create problems. But coming from somewhere where money was scarce, it was difficult to come by. It's a completely different avenue. And now to have it again creates that freedom to help those around you and enjoy it and create those special memories that come with it. I think in Australia in particular, there's a real problem around the topic of money. This element of not talking to your friends about money, or how much you earn, or how can you improve your earnings, how to create businesses together, that sort of stuff. Yeah, so as I was saying, sorry, Foily just glitched again. Hotspot ain't working out great at the moment, but I think that Zoom probably telling us to wrap it up. But going back to what we were saying, right? Money in particular, it creates freedom, but like I was saying, I think there's a real problem in Australia in particular. This whole avenue of talking about money with friends, with family, talking about businesses, promotions, it's not talked about, right? And I think it's a real concern personally, because I feel like it's that tall poppy sort of syndrome where people don't want to talk about it because you're scared you're going to be boasting, or your neighbor's going to think something of you, or your friend's going to not like you anymore and think that you're just sort of boasting about yourself and hyping yourself up, or bragging, for a better term. But it's really important. I think our educational system doesn't talk about money, how to leverage it, how to use it properly, how to take advantage of the system in which it operates. And I think that's really important for young people that are coming up in this space, is to understand how to do that. So for me at Empire in particular, I share as much as I can from the money aspect. I'm not a financial advisor by any means, but I talk about my personal experiences. These are my budgeting tools. This is what I use when I buy an investment property. And this is why I'm purchasing shares and why I don't sell my shares. Instead, I hold them and I trade crypto, and how I manage my funds and my accounting systems and things like that. Like, a good accountant is worth its weight in gold when you set it up correctly and you work with them correctly, right? But
Yeah.
again, money creates freedom, and having a solid foundation understanding of money and talking with friends and family, and even bringing up that conversation, say, hey, it's worthwhile talking about. And I know when I first started, no one was talking about it within my inner circle. And we've sort of adapted that it's okay to talk about it, right?
Yeah.
It's okay to talk about investing and wanting to learn how to do that. And I got close friends that aren't into crypto or trading because they just don't want to do it, and that's okay. But hey, guys, have you thought of large scale ETFs where you can just put some money in a Vanguard or whatever it is, an ASX top 200, and just put some into that every month, right? Statistics show how profitable that can be over a long-term period, right? But
Yeah.
again, it's having conversations like that, I think it's really, really important.
100%. I think there, like you say, there is a bit of a stigma on having those conversations around just finance in general and money. And it's like the stigma is, you're talking about money, and so suddenly you're like this soulless person who's just like, I must accumulate wealth, and like you suddenly become this stranger to some people, I think, when you just open the conversation around it. And the sad thing is, like, there are people who when they talk about money, that's how they are. But for those listening on this podcast now, I think, as you heard Matt talk about money, or when I asked the questions of what's your thoughts on money, if you haven't really sat down and thought about that, you're just out there trying to make money for the sake of it. Maybe sit down and think a little bit more about some of what Matt has said and what money actually means to you. Freedom is a big one. Definitely rings true for me, and for a lot of people, it's that freedom aspect. But it might not be that. It might be something else that kind of drives you to accumulate that money, but it shouldn't be money that motivates you to get money at the end of the day. So just kind of segue on from that question. Do you have any sort of plan for the money that you make when you trade?
So it's a really good one, but simple terms, obviously, I've purchased houses, I've sold houses, I still own property, shares, all that sort of stuff. At the moment, man, we're just enjoying life, right?
Yeah.
And that's what it's been about. Like, my wife and I, as you see, we travel as much as possible. We've already got overseas trips booked in throughout this entire year. My next big purchase will be another property. I've been on the market now for a little while looking for something in particular. Nothing's popped up just yet, so we haven't purchased it. So in the interim, it's every bit of money we're making. And again, I say we because it's a joint force, right? It's not my money specifically for trading and then wife's money. It's we work together, and we use our wealth to build our empire, right? And that's the whole notion of it. But for me, it's my next big purchase would be another property, and that will be a home to live in, raise our family, that sort of stuff. But at the moment, it's travel and life experiencing, and again, with that comes networking, right? And that's been the most amazing thing, is throughout this travel, I've met so many different people, so many different experiences that I can share, connect with people. I can happily say I've got friends right around the world. I can meet anyone pretty much in so many different countries right now at a click of a button and say, hey, I'm going to be in XYZ. Can you meet me there? There's a member in Empires, and hasn't been a student, but we've always connected. And he's in Dubai. I'm like, I'm coming to Dubai this year. Let's hang out for a beer, catch up. It's been a long time coming. So
Yeah,
that's what
that's
money does for me.
it's crazy how many things you rattled off when I said, do you have a plan for your money? It's travel, family, experiences, house, go to Dubai, meet, people around the world. And that is so critical, I think, to create that psychological connection to what you're doing, trading, trying to create money. But those ideas of the plan you're going to do with the money when you make it, it creates a psychological attachment to what you're doing. And I think that's a big component of it that people don't think about. And it's also, to me, it's an assumption and a faith in yourself that you're going to succeed.
Yeah.
You say, I'm going to travel the world with my success. The assumption there is you're successful. And that's half the battle, right? Just believing you can do it. So I think that's awesome.
In saying that, I will say in the early days, my focus was every bit of money I make to pump straight back into my trading account.
Yeah.
Right?
And I think
and not take away, if you don't need to take away from your trading account, just keep building that, because then your 1% trades, they grow and grow and grow from a dollar standpoint. So in the early days, everything just back into the trading account.
Yeah, no, I think that's great advice for the early journey. Is like you if you're aiming to gain 10% the next 3 months in your trading account, and you've only got a $1,000 account, you're saying I want to make $100 in 3 months, and that's perfectly fine if that's your account size. That's what you got to do in the early days. But if you take if you say, once I make 10%, I'm going to take $200 out of my account, then you're doing yourself a massive disservice.
You've killed it. Yeah. You've killed all the work. Yeah.
So yeah, that long-term accumulation gain, the small percentage wins, it's a big factor in it. Just one last question on the money psychology, and then we'll be wrapping it up. So what's a common mistake or mistakes you see in people in their approach to money and trading?
Really good question, actually. I think the most common mistake, it's not talking about money. Like I can't stress that enough. And whether it's talking with someone that you need to pay to talk with, or connecting with the right networks to have those conversations and asking questions, but not talking about money is such a problem, because the wealthy people, not me, not you, but the true wealthy people are leveraging the system, right? They're leveraging debt. Robert Kiyosaki, if that's how you pronounce his last name, right? He teaches you how to leverage the system. He's an advocate for it, right? And some of his audiobooks, you can get them for free, I think, on Spotify or Spotify Premium or whatever, or audiobook, the audiobook one, Audible, sorry, that's it. But you learn to leverage the system of money. Start diving deep into that. Audiobooks, podcasts, understand how you can make that work for you. I remember the biggest impact in the early days when I started in financials, or learning about finance in particular, was the Barefoot Investor. The most basic investment book in the history of books, I reckon.
Yeah.
Right? But it sparked conversations, right? It sparked thought processes. The simple fact of how to save, because people need to learn to save, right? There was a person recently I worked closely with, and it was a relative, and it was helping them save money because they had never been taught to save money. In 6 months' time, they saved over $12,000, right? From having zero in their bank account, right? But again, having conversations and going, hey, here's the book that kicked it off for me. And I gave them the Barefoot Investor and said, have a read. It's basic, but you can take away a lot from it, right? Yeah. It's not the Bezo, it's not the Bible for financial literacy, but it sparks conversation. It sparks thought process. And then from there, you might jump onto Robert's books, and you might jump onto what he talks about and how to leverage the system, how to make the most out of your money. So I think that's probably the biggest problem, but also the biggest opportunity for, say, our generation in particular, because we do have access to those resources now, whereas previously we didn't, or not us, but our parents wouldn't have. Yeah,
100%. But it's funny you mentioned that. I actually got my younger cousin the most recent copy of Barefoot Investor for Christmas. He's 17, but yeah, I gave it to him on Christmas Day, and I'm like, mate, your journey starts now.
Starts now. Love that. That's fantastic.
And yeah, like I think you've highlighted like just a really common mistake is like just starting to talk and think about money, taking away that stigma and just yeah,
Yep.
putting it in your brain. It's a big part, and it may seem simple, but yeah, it's so true. Alrighty, just real quickly for those at home, let's hear about more of the strategy component just to wrap it up. So tell us about your favorite strategies or tools that you use when you trade.
All right. So my favorite tools would have to be divergences. I love finding divergences on charts.
Yeah,
And my trading strategy is quite simple, right? I look for divergences. I look for EMA crosses. I have my own particular strategy with my EMA crosses in particular, but also I bounce off key levels of support and key levels of resistance. I'm not
yeah,
trading midway ranges, like middle of the range. I'm really like really strict on that fact. I wait for that solid dip to that support, look for confirmation of a hold, a bullish divergence, an EMA cross on say the 4 hour, and then I look for entries, right? Or equally, I'm looking at those resistance and waiting to see what's going on with that point in time. And that's where I'm going, okay, I'm going to enter a short position or a long position. So for me, it's key levels of resistance and support, followed by divergences. And then if I want some more confirmation, it's looking at market correlations, which obviously you're the guru in market correlations, putting together the lesson, but it's looking at those market correlations to go, how is the overall economic factors going to impact the play of the crypto market? And we've run the
yeah,
data on that. We know how probable it is and the percentage standpoint. So it's really important to sort of have an understanding of that element. And I think that's why Empire is unique as well, is we take a glance of the overall markets, not just, hey, this is crypto, because crypto is also impacted by other external factors. So for me, that's my strategy. It's
yeah. I like it because it's you spell it out and it seems quite simple, but it echoes the mantras of technical analysis, entering off high probability levels. If you're entering it at solid supports that have confirmations in terms of divergences and crossings and the right candles at the right times, that in essence is technical analysis. And yeah, your strategy embodies it. It doesn't have to be all fancy. It doesn't have to be like these weird crazy concepts that you see everywhere. It's much more simpler than I think a lot of people will give credit for. It's just about your strategy, and then everything we talked about today is like how do you just listen to yourself when the divergence is present at the support and the EMA crosses. Like how do you apply yourself to those conditions? And I think we've covered a lot of things today that will hopefully help other people who are trying to follow their rules better to do that. And if not, you've just shared some amazing insights on your journey as a whole. So thank you so much for that, Matt. Before we wrap it up, let's just get your final thoughts on like the current market landscape, future trends that you're seeing. Let's hear it.
It's really interesting because I think I'm personally quite bullish on Bitcoin as it stands. There's a lot of stigma around which way Bitcoin going to go, etc. But for me in particular, I'm looking at Bitcoin and I'm going, well, I'm not bearish whatsoever, to be honest. Like we've had that deep retracement, 20%. We had that big push up. We got Bitcoin ETFs pumping in money. We've got more coming from possibly Hong Kong in the near term. And we obviously got the halving coming up in close to around that April period, right? So for me, I'm honed in on Bitcoin. I think going into probably a really good fact of the way I trade in particular is, or for even from the risk management aspect with what's going on at the moment, is I've got my holdings in particular in one account, and I'll look for trade my leverage with another account. So keeping those two separate to sort of go, I want to accumulate USD in one period, but also hold value in the other. And then when it comes to that point in time where I do feel the need to sell, then I'm happy to sell the hold, but also I've got a bunch of USD there ready to go and leverage trade and things like that, which I do a lot of. But yeah, right now I'm not bearish. We might see some dips, but at the same time, from a holding standpoint, I see Bitcoin on a strong trajectory, and on the larger timeframes, hey, we're up over 100% last year, and we're still pushing up since January. So it's an exciting
Yeah.
time. We're only $5,000 off that 48K drop that happened not long ago. So it's not too bad. It's already back up 10% from that 20% drop.
Yeah, definitely. I think just what we touched on at the start of the call, the tailwind behind this market is huge, and the trend has been true. And yeah, I mean, if we're bearish, we'll know when the signs are there, but they're not here right now. And the reality is, we ran up over 100% in 12 months. You're going to have some sideways action. You're going to have some retracements. It's natural. We know this is natural market mechanisms at play. We'll be patient on it, but yeah, bigger picture, I totally agree with you. I think very exciting things to come for crypto in general.
Definitely.
Let's just wrap it up. Final parting words, Matt, for anyone starting their trading journey. Do you have any advice to them or words of wisdom that you'd like to impart to aspiring traders?
Words of wisdom is don't put too much pressure on yourself. Surround yourself with the right people. Set a plan, stick to it, and remain consistent. And the worst thing anyone can do in this space is jump in 1 month, play around the next month, then come out, then come back, come in, come out. Give yourself a good 6 to 12 months solid block. Get the foundations under you. Set your goals, set your targets. And what we spoke about earlier is really identify what that true goal is, like that C-type goal that you want to aspire to, that's unattainable, but you need to move heaven and earth to get there. But also on that journey, set those mid-level range goals to go, you know what, I've ticked off one. Fantastic. What's the next one? Bang, crack that. And some of them might be account balances. Others might be, I want to get X amount of books under my belt. It might be that you want to do something physically for yourself or personally, right? You want to travel, things like that. But set your goals and keep moving forward in that direction. Improve 1% every day. That's so important. But at the same time, go back, don't put pressure on yourself. If some days you're not feeling up to it, still do something small. But if some days you really need that time out, that's your body telling you, hey, you need a mental refresh, step away. There's no point, right? Again, going back to what I said earlier, when we work really hard. When we need rest, we rest well, right? Or we play hard and we go out, we have fun, right? But again, you got to stay consistent.
Great advice, Matt. Just not putting so much pressure on yourself, I think is a big one. I felt it in the early days of like this pressure to succeed, and it's a double-edged sword. It may sort of give you a bit of a fire under your ass to push, but at the same time, that pressure can really cause you to implode on yourself. So you need to take a step back sometimes and just realize what the journey is. And I think you've shed so much light on that in this podcast today, Matt. So thank you so much. This has been a phenomenal interview. I think whoever's watching has definitely gotten something out of listening. So we'll wrap it up there. Thank you so much for coming on. And yeah, just any final words to say goodbye?
No, thank you for having me, mate. And I look forward to who's coming on next. So it's an exciting time, and it's been really great being on and sharing my journey, my experience. Obviously, went over an hour, but this was our first one. So we'll take some learnings from that. And obviously for the next one, we'll see how we go, but we'd love to get everyone's feedback in the comments, and obviously from the Empire community. That would be fantastic, because we'll be doing more of these. And it's a raw insight into who we are. So I think it's really important.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you guys. So yeah, make sure you subscribe to the channel, like the video, share it around, drop a comment if you want any, things explored in future interviews, you want certain people on, let us know. And yeah, we'll be back next month with another episode of the podcast. See you later, guys.
Thanks.